Anyway, okay, so massive elephant in the room. We just crossed 1,000 subscribers. What? I don't even have enough words to thank you guys for all your support and love and for subscribing and all of that jazz. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful that you guys are enjoying the content, and I'm so excited for you guys to see everything that we've got lined up for you on this channel as well. I know in the grand scheme of things on YouTube, 1,000 might not be the biggest number, but to me it is a massive milestone. So thank you so much for all the love and support. I am truly grateful. As you guys well know, all of November was Style Study Month, and as I've mentioned before, I'm sure, style studies are the craziest, most labor-intensive videos for me to make. So as you can guess, doing 5 in a row was a little crazy and just the tiniest bit exhausting. And part of this exhaustion can often translate to burnout, which can cause a creative block. So today I figured I would share with you 6 super helpful and, as far as I know, super unheard of tips on how you can get through a creative or mental block quicker and more easily. As always, if you find this video helpful, then please remember to give me a big thumbs up and hit that subscribe button down below. But for now, let's look at my 6 super tips on dealing with burnout. Okay, so fair warning, I'm recording the voiceover a couple days after the intro, and I woke up this morning feeling very under the weather, let's put it that way. So if I sound a little blocked up and nasal, I do apologize. But let's get into the video. So as always, we're gonna have a speed painting in the background. If you've watched my last couple of videos, you know that I've been working on this dark astrology series, where we look at some of the darker aspects of each of the 12 zodiac signs. So far we've done Aries and Taurus, and today we're going to look at the 3rd zodiac sign, Gemini. Gemini is a mutable air sign that is all about communication, playfulness, and multitasking. However, when it goes dark side, Gemini can come off as indecisive and unfocused, easily bored, and very inconsistent with what they say and do. Gemini is one of the very few signs that are depicted by human symbolism, and it is the only sign depicted by twin humans. So to communicate all of that, I've depicted them as twins who, though their faces are identical, their personalities are like night and day. While one embodies the light attributes, the other is the shadow. While one watches a plant grow, the other holds an axe ready to chop it down. Okay, with all of that lore, let's dive into creative burnout. Now, creative blocks are often highly feared and actively avoided across the art community. It's like this demon whose name you must not speak, or it will come and drain you of your creative abilities, kind of like the Voldemort of art. The Voldemort. That was completely unscripted. I am so sorry. Okay, so obviously that isn't true. Nothing can take away your power to create, because creation is the one quality that makes human beings so different to every other species on this planet. But regardless, creative blocks can be discouraging, particularly if it gets in the way of how you make a living. So here are 6 tips that help me push through creative burnout in little to no time. Most of these tips apply to burnout in general, but the last 2 are specific to creative burnout, and you'll see why. So let's dive in. This is kind of a preemptive move, but it is absolutely crucial you do this now or when you're feeling perfectly fine. Keep a running plan for burnout days. Personally, I have a private Pinterest board filled with ideas about activities for a burnout day. So this includes word search puzzles, a bunch of tarot readings on YouTube, henna designs I can try out, and so on. As cool new ideas pop up on my feed, I add them to the Burnout Day board. You see, a lot of creative block is worsened by the feeling of stagnation. You'll feel the block more when you're doing nothing at all. And that state of mind makes it so you can't even think of anything to do, which further feeds into the stagnation, creating this positive feedback loop. You feel stuck because you can't think of something to do, and you can't think of something to do because you feel stuck. Having a Burnout Day plan helps break the cycle by giving you a starting point. It doesn't have to be the same stuff as my plan has. In fact, a Burnout Day is the perfect opportunity to take up that new hobby or skill that you've been putting off for the longest time, to read those books you've bought and shelved without reading, or even to visit those places you've wanted to but didn't have the time for it. It's not like we're getting any work done today. Might as well put that time into ticking off the bucket list. This one is usually a foolproof step for me, so I highly recommend trying this out. Find the polar opposite of what you usually do and do that for a day. So for instance, I spend 5 days a week creating. Either I'm painting or scripting out a video or doing voiceovers or editing or creating thumbnails and descriptions. Every one of these is creative by nature, and the polar opposite of creation to me is consumption. If you're not putting something out, you're taking something in, right? So if I'm having a burnout day, my priority is usually to consume content that other people have created. I'll watch tutorials and workshops, documentaries and podcasts, or the occasional movie even. I'll listen to all the new albums that are out. Positions has been on top of my list lately, by the way. Excellent album, chef's kiss. Or even try out a new dessert recipe if I'm ever in the mood. Instead of forcing myself to create, I do the polar opposite and consume what someone else has created. This also has the added benefit of expanding my visual library, which is always nice. But say for instance you manage staff or a store for a living. Your main tasks likely include planning, paperwork, and communication. So the polar opposite of this would probably be an unplanned day out. Maybe you could go out on a hike with your phone muted so as not to be disturbed and just allow the trail to take you where it takes you. Or you could have a picnic at a park with your dog. Doing the opposite of what you usually do has two benefits. One is that it takes the pressure off the overworked parts of our brains, and the second is that it exercises parts of our minds that are generally undernourished. This is an amazing way to balance out and round off our lives in general, and burnout or not, I highly recommend doing this every few weeks regardless. This is one I've blatantly stolen from my mum. Your environment has a huge impact on how you think. I'm not talking about the cleanliness or neatness of your living space. I'm guilty of working in a messy room myself. But a lot of times we tend to work in dull, uninspiring surroundings, where things have been the same exact way for so long, we don't even register the different elements around us. And like we've seen earlier in the video, a lot of creative block comes from the feeling of stagnation. So another cool way to break that feeling is to switch things up in your workspace. Maybe change up how you store your papers and stationery, move the furniture around, bring in some new colorful elements, or simply just change your desktop background. My mum is the queen of shaking things up. I swear we could be living in the same property for years and still feel like we moved 7 times. I genuinely can't be bothered, but I've seen how this changes her entire thought process at the grassroots level. When you move furniture around, it helps shake up any stuck energy in the room. Plus, everyone likes the feeling of a brand new workspace, right? So tip number 3, redo your workspace, and I promise you it will help shake off that mental block. I know, a big yawn. But this is one that you absolutely cannot ignore. You know the thing they say about thirst? That when you feel thirsty, it's actually a sign that you've already been dehydrated for a while? Creative blocks are like that. When you start to feel the symptoms of burnout, it's not something that has just happened spontaneously. Chances are you've been exhausted for a long time, but you have been ignoring all of the necessary self-care that you should have been investing time and energy in. Look, no judgment here, I do it all the time, because it is somehow more socially acceptable to work ourselves to the bone than to actually sit down and nurture ourselves back to a healthy mind. This is why, personally, I hate the whole grind culture that has taken over the business community in recent times. Working hard is important, but so is being smart about it. There is absolutely no way that pushing ourselves to grind through a creative block is ever going to produce high quality work. In fact, burnout is the surest sign that you haven't been giving back to your mind and body as much as you've been taking from them every single day. So, as a final cry for help, your brain has completely shut down, physically unable to keep running on fumes anymore. And the only correct response in this situation is to respect the fact that as adults, our very first responsibility is always towards the care of ourselves. For a lot of people, this comes in the form of familiar comforts such as face masks and bubble baths, hot chocolate, and a Disney movie. But self-care also means doing the more substantial stuff, such as going to therapy or having a day out with friends or a Zoom call because, well, you know. Emotional self-care is just as important as physical self-care, and both of these need to be a priority when we're dealing with burnout. Alright, the next 2 points on this list are specifically about creative burnout, so bear that in mind as we go through them. As you can guess, this can't really apply to physical strain or burnout from manual labor for obvious reasons. But when it comes to creative blocks, a major tendency I've noticed in myself is the affinity for napping. Naps are super helpful if you're physically worn out. Obviously, everyone loves a good nap. However, they are, in my opinion, the absolute worst way to deal with a creative block. Why? Because it all comes back to stagnation. You know that feeling of self-loathing from watching Netflix all day and consuming 20 packets of crisps in one sitting, and then when it asks you if you're still watching, you see your reflection in the screen and feel the crushing weight of disappointment? Yeah, imagine what it would feel like to pile that onto a creative burnout day where you already have low self-esteem to begin with. No thank you. The whole point of these tips is to help you prevent that stagnation from setting in, and a big part of that is moving around. Movement is one of the most primal instincts that instantly connect us to the world around us. As a former dancer, I can promise you nothing is as freeing as just letting loose and allowing your body to feel the air around it, to feel grounded in the 3D world. Now, if exercise is not your thing, that's cool. Maybe do something with your hands, like knitting or solving a Rubik's Cube. The point is to use physical movement in such a way that it doesn't allow the block to settle into our bones. And as a side bonus, physical activity also gives you those happy endorphins, which are bound to be healing in and of themselves. Okay, stick with me here. I know it feels like this tip goes against everything that we've spoken of so far. I harped on earlier about taking a load off of the creative part of our brains and focusing on consuming and so on, and I promise that is still what we're working towards. But sometimes passively taking in information just doesn't do it for me. I'm at this stage right now, as I'm sure a lot of you guys are as well, where I feel completely useless if I don't create. Seriously, I get weekend depression from not working, though it has been a lot better in recent times, but we all know it is not wise to keep working through a creative block. So in order to strike a balance, here's my final tip for today. Create in a way that you don't usually create in. A lot of the times, the mental block is localized to your preferred method of creation. If you're an artist like me, your block is specifically to painting or writing or composing. So the objective is to scratch that creative itch while also not probing at that block. And the answer is create in a different way. Now, this next bit might sound silly, but my absolute favorite thing to do for this is to play The Sims. Hear me out, okay? The entire game is about building characters and stories and entire worlds. The only real objective is to create mindlessly, but a lot of it has already been created for you. Shout out to my Discord peeps this last weekend who probably noticed that my status showed me playing Sims 4. It is a rare sight to watch me play video games, but because the game allows me to create without being insanely taxing to my usual methods of creation, it is the perfect balance for me. This is probably an excellent thing to consider while you're putting together the burnout plan, as we saw at the very beginning of this list. Find a way to create that has nothing to do with how you normally create. It'll satisfy that creative urge while your brain still recovers in the background. So with that said, here is the finished painting for Gemini at the Inconsistent. If you'd like to check out the full 4K and 8K resolution painting and also grab some wallpapers, head on over to my Patreon, link is in the description. Support the channel, it helps me out a lot. Now, I know this was a bit of an intense video, but I do hope that it's been helpful. What are some great burnout or creative blog tips that help you? Leave those in a comment below, because I know all of us are dying to know. If this video helped, then please remember to give me a big thumbs up and hit that subscribe button down below. If there are any creative issues that you'd like for me to provide tips on, leave those in the comments below and I will make it happen. Check out another video up here because I try to share very helpful tips and such on this channel. But with all of that said, thank you so very much for hanging out with me today. Thank you so much for 1,000 subscribers. I am... and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye!